So welcome everyone. I'm so excited that each of you are here, and you are at the right place if you intended to join Intentional Conversations, a virtual community chat that's brought to you by Nika White Consulting. We do this every week, and for now, it's probably going to continue to occur on into the future. I know that we have co-hosts already set aside and secured through the end of May, and I want to continue to keep holding this space as long as there's an audience of people that want to have a sense of connectivity to community around conversations where we are addressing topics that intersect diversity, equity, and inclusion, leadership, and business. I want to acknowledge that we are live also on Facebook right now, and so welcome to all of our Facebook audience. Appreciate you joining with us. So I want to give you a little bit of context for why we're doing this, what it's all about, and what you have to look forward to in this next hour. And again, we'll put up a poll momentarily because we want to see who is here as part of our audience. And so these virtual sessions are just an opportunity to hold space for communities to come together to learn with and from each other. The one thing that I will tell you is that I don't have all the answers, and nor do any of the co-hosts that have generously given up their time to be with us. But I do believe that within our respective areas of expertise, we have insight and perspective that many can gain value from, and we want to be able to share that. But equally important, we want to also have the opportunity for each of you who are joining these community chats to have a chance to share your insight, your knowledge, and resources that you may have. So again, with that in mind, I do want to draw everyone's attention to our community chat room. And for those who are joining, if you would make sure you put your mute on. I'm hearing some background noise right now. That will allow us to maximize the opportunity for all. So please make sure you are muted. And so there are going to be times where we will open up the line to allow others to share as well. And so just be mindful of that. So if we say something and it really gives you perspective that you feel like would resonate with others, maybe jot that down. And then when we open up the line, we will look forward to being able to hear from all. So we do have specific topics that are going to be addressed, but we have, again, designed these conversations to be quite fluid, especially with a high level of sensitivity and respect for what's top of mind for everyone right now, which is, of course, navigating this time of uncertainty during this global pandemic. And so see this as more of an informal fireside chat. It's going to be raw and unscripted, but yet thoughtful enough to ensure that we are leaving you, our audience, with engaging and insightful experience that will motivate you to act with some sense of hope, purpose, leading to productive days ahead. Now, I'll pause here and say that when we say productive, each of us will have to define what is productive for us, right? For us, sometimes it could be simply just waking up, remaining sane, keeping our families healthy, remaining healthy ourselves, and that is enough if that's how you define productivity. But I also know that there's a group of very ambitious women and men that are joining these conversations that really want to also leverage this time to make sure they're propelling themselves to the next level with different projects, new skill sets, new connection points. And there's not a right or wrong. So we have to each define productivity for ourselves. And so see this experience more about providing a path to action towards application more than just sharing information. I always like to leave the audience with feeling empowered to be able to leverage the information so that they are equipped to be able to take some steps forward in whatever regard that they deem appropriate. So again, I want to remind you that the chat room is available for you to ask your questions, for you to introduce yourselves. You see that right now we have a poll in place. Many of you are already taking advantage of answering those questions, and I welcome you to do so. The first question is, what's your current situation? We want to know, are you self-employed working at the office? Are you working from home? Are you employed and working at the office? Are you furloughed? Are you laid off? What's your situation? And if you happen to have put other, then maybe in the chat room, let us know what other is, so we'll have a little bit of greater context for that. The second question that you see on the poll is, choose what best describes you. And again, this is really how you are defining your situation right now. And this helps us to know who's on the call, who our audience is today. Are you a career professional, a student, an entrepreneur, or other? And again, I'm still getting a little bit of background noise. And so if you don't have yourself muted, please make sure you take a moment to do that now. And I also want to, again, welcome our Facebook audience that's with us. We're live on Facebook as well as live on Zoom. One of the other things that I will encourage you to do before I introduce my fabulous co-host today is invite you to include your LinkedIn information into the chat room. If you are a business owner and want to include your website there, then feel free to do so. I want us to find this as a community that not only will learn from and with each other, but also to support each other in the best way that we can. And sometimes just knowing of the resources that are available among us is very helpful. Okay, and so that last question that we have here as you continue to engage in our poll is, what are your biggest concerns during this global pandemic? What are your biggest concerns? We have remaining healthy, you know, caring for elderly family members or even their health if you're having to, you know, be in the same proximity with them, balancing it all. Homeschooling. My kids are pretty self-sufficient. I have a daughter that's a sophomore in college and she's doing her work online now, and a son that's a senior in high school, but they're older, they're self-sufficient. But I know that we have many moms of young kids that you're having to play school teacher, a nurse, because again, sometimes we aren't as just comfortable going to the doctor right now. And so what is your situation? Are you concerned about the personal economic implications of what we're dealing with right now? If so, please let us know that. Or isolation, mental health. These are all valid concerns, and we want to get a pulse on where our audience is, which will help frame our conversations for today. Okay, so I'm going to defer to my colleague, Anna Viola, who is a member of the Nika White Consulting team, to let us know, do we feel like we're at a place where we can close the poll now? Anna, unmute yourself and let us know. That way we can start maybe showing the results, and then I'll introduce my co-host.
I think so. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and show you guys the results.
Fantastic. Okay, so Anna, do you want to talk us through these quickly, just to kind of give us a synopsis of our audience today?
It looks like the current situation, we've got 53% of all of us who are employed and working from home, followed by self-employed and working from home. We've got a few that are employed and still working at the office, self-employed working at the office. We've got 4% furloughed, 4% laid off, and 9% other. If you want to share, please go ahead and do so in the chat room, and we can understand it better. And then we have 70% career professionals. We've got 4% students. We've got 32% of our audience are entrepreneurs and 4% other. And wow, the biggest concerns during the global pandemic seems to, we're all over the map. Balancing it all came first. I'm sorry, you will hear my toddler in the background.
Hey, listen, this is raw and unscripted. It's totally fine.
Remaining healthy is a close second. Elderly family members' health is right after that. Mental health is also right up there. Homeschooling effectively, personal economic implications, and the last is isolation. So that's interesting that isolation came last.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that isolation is a result of all of those other concerns. And so I think maybe that's why it wasn't necessarily at the top of the list, but it is indicative of some of the other percentages that we're seeing across the board. And so, you know, I hope if nothing else, this helps to amplify the fact that we are not alone, right? That each of us are being impacted by this in one way or another, which is why I wanted to offer up this opportunity for these virtual conversations. And so we'll jump right in. I'm so excited to introduce my co-host for today. I do want to let you know that the session is being recorded, and we will share this afternoon along with the transcript from the chat room. So again, that chat room is going to be really important for sharing all of your resources and introducing yourselves. And again, feel free to put your contact in there, a link to your LinkedIn page so we all can stay connected if we choose to do so. But I also, again, want to acknowledge my Facebook audience. I don't want to forget about them because we do have a group of folks that are out there on Facebook. And so welcome. We're glad you're here joining with us. So our guest host this week is Monica McCoy. Hi, Monica. How are you?
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you very clearly. So I want to give a little bit about you and your background, but I'm also going to allow you to then take over and share more about your background, because I'm sure I'm not going to cover all of the experiences that you're going to offer to this conversation, but I do want to provide a little bit. And I have followed you for quite some time, and I really appreciate and admire the work you're doing. And I have to start by saying that I am grateful that you accepted this invitation, Monica. I know that right now is really busy for so many people, especially as business owners who are trying to stay afloat and pivot. And the fact that you said yes to this opportunity, it allows me to feel seen, valued, and heard as it relates to your time. And so thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
So Monica McCoy is known as the Pitch Queen, and she is the CEO of Pitch University, and she will tell us a little bit more about that. But she will teach us today how to reinvent our business or even our personal brands. And I do want to make sure that I amplify that we are talking to two audiences: those who are career professionals, those who are they're concerned about their personal brand as they look to continue to propel themselves to the next level. But then we also have a number of women that are business owners or aspiring entrepreneurs, right? And of course, understanding how to navigate this time of uncertainty and position our business and ourselves for success is important. Monica is also a global speaker, a business strategist, an executive coach, and consultant. Most recently, Monica was the recipient of the 2019 Startup Atlanta Best Equity Champion. As founder of Monica Motivates LLC, she helps corporate professionals and entrepreneurs transition from being more spectators to pursuing their dreams and becoming active participants and having fulfilling, successful, personal and professional lives. And so Monica is going to share more with us about her background, but I have to always start these sessions when I bring in my co-host with this very simple question that I really do want to genuinely hear the answer for, and that is, how are you doing, Monica? How are you really doing right now? Did we lose Monica?
So
Oh, great. No, she's there.
no, I'm here. Yeah, and guys, I will tell you, if I bounce off, I will get right back on. Unfortunately, in our area, we are having just a unstable internet connection. So I will definitely get back on if I bounce off today. But I am just so, first of all, honored to be here today. I think Dr. Nika White is just a phenomenal leader, and I would be just completely remiss if I didn't say for each of us to please, let's just snap it up for Dr. White, because for her taking the time to put this amazing community together in this time of uncertainty for a lot of us. But I will say, to answer your question very transparently, is that I am someone who views times of adversity as times of great opportunity. I've been an optimist my entire life, and I always see the silver lining in even what is just a tremendous time of adversity. So I know that, many of us are adjusting management simultaneously. I happen to be someone who left her corporate career 3 years ago and is in the midst of growing a business. And so when you have everything going amazing and then you get hit with a global pandemic, I think all of us will realize that it's a time to really lean on what is your true center. And so for me, I've always lived my life by the 5 F's of, I start with my faith. So my faith is my foundation. As you can see in the background, my husband is a builder, so my house is always just a bunch of house models around on our walls for his latest project. But as you know, with any house that you build, you have to have a great foundation. And so my faith is my foundation, and my faith is what carries me through the valleys and through the peaks. But also I'm big on fitness. So number 2, fitness, making sure that I'm staying in shape and making sure I'm protecting this. So your mental well-being is going to be so important. And then of course, my family. I like many of you, I'm a new homeschool teacher of a 5th grader and a 7th grader. And quite frankly, the way that they do the work, grade again and reteach myself a lot of these concepts. But then fourth for me is fortune. So I don't get to my business until fourth, as a fourth priority, because if those three things, my faith, my family, and my fitness are not good, then unfortunately I can't be good for my business and I can't come right for my clients. But amongst that, I think it's critical to make sure that we still have fun. And even with the grim reports that we're seeing and a lot of the adversity that's going on, you know, still make sure that you take time to be kind to yourself and to be patient to yourself and to truly allow yourself to just enjoy the calmness and the stillness of this moment that will probably, you know, never happen again in our lifetime. We're just all having to be completely still simultaneously.
No, I love that, Monica. That is great. And I love your Fs. I think that actually speaks a little bit to what we saw in the poll earlier, where the majority of the folks said, we're just trying to balance it all, right? That was where they were centered around, I just want to be able to balance it all. And it sounds like one of the best practices that you have identified that works well for you is just respecting the priority, and that helps you to balance it all. So I loved how you mentioned that there's certain foundational things that have to be in place before you can start to take on other opportunities. And so thank you for sharing that. So again, I've given a little bit about your background, but I now want you to just talk a little bit more in depth, because you have a rich background, and I followed your work since a couple years ago when you and I both were presenting at a BMW event. That's where we first connected. And I remember it was, I don't know, we bonded just over the experience of being so grateful by having the opportunity. And we exchanged information in terms of being relatively new in our business. And so I have since followed and watched you, and you've been watching and supporting me. And so again, I'm just grateful that you're here today. So talk a little bit about Pitch University and some of the other aspects of your business and what you do.
Yeah, so Nika, let me know if you guys can still hear me, because I lost you briefly. But yeah, literally, I want to start back to, I think it's critical to go back to where you came from. And I'm the child of a single mother, so I was raised by a single mother. And literally, I was taught the value of hard work at a very early age. But I had a dream, you know, after my parents went through their divorce, to become a cardiologist, because I wanted to fix people's heart. You know, when I saw hearts broken around me, I wanted to go and repair hearts. So my dream was to be a cardiologist. So I went to Emory University with the pursuit of wanting to go and operate on people and fix their hearts. And unfortunately, y'all, guess what I had a fear of? You should determine that you have a fear of blood before you get to college and before you're a chemistry major and pursuing pre-med. But I had a fear of blood. So I had to call my mom and be like, hey, you know, I'm going to have to pivot. Thought, oh, I love we have some Emory alums on here. Awesome. I was going to have to pivot and going to have to switch from chemistry to psychology. You know, how people think. And my dream at that point was then to go and inspire people to be the best version of themselves. So I went through the corporate track for 15 years. I worked at the Coca-Cola company in a variety of roles, from strategy, innovation, marketing, finance, etc. My last role was a global director of strategy and innovation, where I had accountability for Asia Pacific, Europe, Canada, Latin America, everything, Africa, except the United States. So I never slept, and I was always on the road. And so what I wanted to do was really take a chance on myself and follow my dream. And so at the peak of my career, I decided to walk away from it and to come out here and do the work that I felt really mattered to me. And I want to be very clear with everyone, is that everyone's North Star is different. Everyone's vision for their life is different. Everyone's definition of success is different. So I don't want you to leave this call and be like, oh my gosh, Monica, I'm going to go and just jump out and go and do my business. Like, that's not the message that I'm trying to convey. But what I am trying to convey is that, you know, truly understand who you are deep inside. And as I was in corporate America, what I noticed about myself is that I was living everyone else's dream. So I was successful to everyone else, but I wasn't successful many of you have seen like the beautiful glass buildings that you see downtown of the banks and corporations. So it's like this beautiful glass building, but on the inside, all the glass was crumbling. And I literally just said to myself, you know, Monica, are you going to keep, you know, pursuing what everyone else's definition of success is, or are you going to take a chance on yourself? And that's what I did 3 years ago. And I launched Monica Motivates, which is the inspirational part of the business, where we help people really determine, you know, their North Star to follow their dream and or follow their true purpose. But also what I noticed out here as a woman of color is that unfortunately some of the things that I noticed in corporate America were also some of the same things that I was seeing out here as a founder, is that African-American women were only securing 0.4% of the venture capital funding. So if you think about the fact that there was $136 billion in VC funding given out last year, and African-American women only got 0.4% of it, you see the huge gap there. And so some of the things that I was seeing is that we needed this Pitch University platform, one, to help women understand what is your value proposition, you know, how can you really relate to
Thank you. Okay, I think we may have lost Monica, unfortunately, for just a second, but I have no doubt that she's going to join back on. You know, what I think makes this experience so real is that what Monica shared that she's dealing with, there's so many people
you
who
guys
find
can hear me?
themselves. Well, yeah, we can hear you. I was just sharing that, but can you hear us, Monica? But what I was going to say is that I think what's so interesting about this is that we are realizing a real life scenario of how there are certain areas where their internet access is not reliable. So imagine all of those families who are trying to homeschool and the kids are needing to get online and they don't have accessibility to that, how frustrating that can be during a time where there's always such great uncertainty. And for me, one of the motivations of having these community virtual chats is to amplify the needs of the most vulnerable right now. I'm really concerned about what's going to happen to those who are already in vulnerable states and were deeply challenged prior to COVID-19. And I feel like after COVID-19, those challenges are going to continue at even a more increased rate. And so I think it behooves all of us, just as community citizens, to want to lean into that and recognize that whatever influence and power that we may have to try to help protect those that are most vulnerable, that we need to do that. And so I just wanted to bring that up because again, you know, we all are dealing with so many different challenges. I want to go to the chat as we anticipate for Monica coming back to join us.
I'm here, Nika.
Okay, you're here. Okay, great. No, fantastic.
Thank you guys for your patience with this. So thank you.
No, you're fine. I appreciate you alerting us in the beginning when you said it. Just wanted to give you heads up. But you know, again, that is one of the challenges that a lot of families are having is the lack of, you know, accessibility to quality internet. And it saddens me because I don't know how I would survive right now without the internet. So nonetheless, but as you were talking, Monica, you mentioned value proposition, how Pitch University helps women to really identify their North Star and their value proposition. And I think that when we're in this moment where isolation is something that all of us are experiencing because of what's happening, it is easy for us to fall even deeper into that trap of not feeling like we're as valuable, right? And so what would be some of those best practices to shift the mindset of people that are a part of this audience today if they're finding themselves questioning their value?
Oh, what a beautiful question. So one, everyone, please understand that you are valuable beyond your wildest potential. One of the best gifts that the chief HR officer for Coca-Cola gave to me on my way out was a book called Knowing Your Value. And I literally say to each of you is that really determine what's going on with your mindset. Do you have a fixed mindset or do you have a growth mindset?
Yes.
Are you someone who you are always very fearful and you like to control everything? Or are you someone who You know, you're willing to challenge yourself, you're willing to explore new things. And the reason I say this to each of you is because there's no right or wrong answer right now, but be honest with yourself. You have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset, because quite frankly, many of us are in a stage of really being able to pivot to our purpose, but we have to make sure that we are truly taking time to assess what skills do we bring to the table. What are those things that literally we have in our toolbox that we can leverage during this time? And so if you have never taken a chance to work on your value proposition, the first thing that I want you to really think about is, what problem am I naturally good at solving? What solutions do I bring to the table? How can this really have an impact on my business or on the corporation that I work for? And then finally, who will benefit from this? So that is literally your value proposition in a nutshell. If you can determine that, you will really start to change what's going on up here and pivot that thinking. Because many times, especially as women, and thank you to our courageous men who are on this call too, we really are so hard on ourselves. And what I would say to each of you is, one, be patient with yourself and truly try to find a place of peace during this time, because everyone is going through this simultaneously. And just as in change management, we're not all going to go through it at the same pace. So go through it at your pace, but also realize that you are doing just fine at whatever pace you're going. Do not compare yourself to anyone else. Go at Anna's pace. Go at Anita Scruggs' pace. Go at your own pace and really know that this too shall pass.
I love that. One of my favorite quotes by Condoleezza Rice is, and I hope I'm not going to butcher this, but it's to the effect of, don't compare yourself to someone else because you just may set the bar too low. And that really speaks to me, because sometimes as we navigate life, we are comparing ourselves to others, feeling as though we're not where we need to be, not because of our own personal goals and what we're doing to propel ourselves, but it's about where someone else is. And so that spoke to me, because she was saying that is, while you're worried about comparing yourself to someone else, you may be cheating yourself of other heights that you could reach. And so I think that's a great point, and we have to all really be mindful and reflective on, what do we want and what's within our means to be able to get there, and don't worry about other people. And so I love that. I love that. So I want to go to the chat room quickly and acknowledge some folks who are on and some of the questions and comments that are coming through. So Odessa Young, she's here, and she says, what skills do I bring to the table? What problem am I naturally good at fixing? Who will benefit from what I have to offer? Just echoing a lot of what you shared, Monica. So your message is certainly resonating with people. And I think I saw earlier, let's see, so I think it was Tanya was talking about Big Brothers and Big Sisters, or is it Boys and Girls Club, about how that organization is focused very closely on trying to ensure that there's opportunities of protecting the most vulnerable through, yes, it's Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Tanya Gibson is on, and she was sharing that. And so I'm glad to know that there are many organizations that are thinking along those lines, because we need for all of us to band together to help protect the most vulnerable. And the book that you mentioned, Knowing Your Value, we put that up in on the chat room. I believe Anna put that in the chat room. And so if you get a second, take a look at that for us, Monica, and make sure that that's the right one, so we can be directing people to the right resource. Because again, this is something we're going to share back out.
Yes, I'll make sure I send a link so that you guys can send it out to everyone after the call also. So yeah, there it is. Someone, Anna,
oh, great. Someone is already on it. I love it.
Anna is amazing.
This is a very resourceful group. So Tammy Moore is on as well. Hi, Tammy. She's saying that she really loved that quote. So yeah, Condoleezza Rice, she was a business when she said that, and she's a business in every imaginable way. So I do admire her. Okay, great. So I want to open it up now to see if there are any immediate questions. And if not, I'm going to go back to my questions that I have for Monica. But as I promised, I do want to make sure this is interactive. So if you have a burning question right now or comment to tag on to what's already been discussed and shared, I'll give you a chance to unmute yourself so that you can share with the group. So now is your opportunity, if you so just inclined, to share with all of us. Angel just said she missed the fifth F. And so if you could put that fifth F into the chat room.
Hi there. Maybe I can start.
Hi, yes, fantastic.
Cool.
Tell us who we're speaking with now.
Cool. I'm B, and I guess I'm somewhat representing my team over at POC Inc. And oh, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you perfect. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. So, but first I want to just thanks for putting this on. I do have, well, a lot of questions and a lot to respond about, but I think I would just start with one thing, which is one of the things that I've experienced during this global pandemic and our response is one, all the beauty of the people responding to help, and then two, professionally, the kind of convergence where diversity, equity, and inclusion to me has clearly been kind of the heart of, as you said before, a sustainable way of prioritizing those who are with the least access, who are underrepresented, who are most vulnerable, as a means to help everyone, ultimately. And using DEI learning models, frameworks, techniques so that we can work together to innovate, learn, heal, and keep functioning. So my real question is, where do you all see the changes that have happened in recent times when it comes to DEI awareness, when it comes to how that relates to just how businesses can thrive together? And I guess as a more specific example on our side, we've started offering COVID-19 services in our strategic consulting to help people to navigate all this. And maybe there's something else that you've experienced or come up with yourself that's been meaningful.
Yeah, no, I know that's a great question, and I certainly have some thoughts. Yes. I want to toss it over to Monica as our co-host, just to lead in with that first, with some reactions.
Yeah, so first of all, great question, and I would say that what COVID-19 is doing is really amplifying the case for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So as many of you have seen with the COVID-19 cases, the deaths unfortunately are over-indexing to African Americans. And literally what is being exposed is the socioeconomic gap, not only from a healthcare perspective, but the socioeconomic gap from a fact that access to quality education, access to just tools and resources to be able to do homeschooling effectively, access to upward mobility for women of color in corporate America. So if we think about, a holistic case, everyone knows that when you are going to college and you're wanting to follow your dream and you're going to corporate America, that many of us have dreams of aspiring to have upward mobility, and the trends from Catalyst over the past 15 years. So if you guys haven't checked out Catalyst, that's CATALYST, is a good source to look at for stats when it comes to upward mobility for minorities and for women.
So she may be stuck again for a period of time, but again, I know that she will rejoin us. So I want to jump in here and add to what I feel like Monica was beginning to share. And you're right, B, we are seeing a tremendous influx of organizations that are trying to really lean into their responsibility to lead inclusively during this unprecedented time. I find that what can be a distractor is when organizations are so quickly to move towards action, which can be one of the worst enablers of bias, as we're making rapid changes to the way in which we work. I also think that people are having to figure out how do we adapt DEI events and training and programming for the online space, because the education of those constructs of DEI are so important right now. We're seeing organizations to become much more thoughtful about having employees work remotely and what they can do in terms of diminishing maybe a sense of belonging, and how to help people to feel still connected, but yet still respecting their places. I've heard of some organizations who have some employees who quite honestly have been a little discouraged by their employer requiring them to have their video on whenever they convene. And I think that that's a challenge in and of itself, because it assumes that everybody has a home life, that maybe the environment is such to where they want to invite people into that space, and that's not always the situation. So we have to be thoughtful about that. I also want to see us mobilize in greater solidarity with those who are being disproportionately affected right now. You know, as Monica mentioned, we're seeing that the African-American population is very heavily being impacted by COVID-19 at a higher rate than some other populations. And so I'll pause there because it seems like you wanted to jump in.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I really don't want to say much more, but you reminded me of two things that kind of tie it together. One is the kind of the Black experience before the pandemic, which was that there was already a pandemic. You know, the world was on fire, especially for Black folks. And so a lot of us were already in this space of, you know, navigating peril.
Yeah, absolutely.
Socioeconomically, emotionally, you know, our families and, you know, our sense of village and so on. And so I think what's happening is almost like empathy by default. And
yes.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier is the general challenge of amplifying bias, where, you know, we might have an easy direction that makes sense to us, where we move quickly, but in doing so, we don't do it wisely. We don't do it in an integrated way. And I think the same thing applies for individual choice, as opposed to what we might call mindful decisions. The same thing applies for collective work, where if we don't integrate across our learning, our stories, our skills, awareness, and abilities, and reach out to those folks who are not maybe centered in the response or centered in the awareness, and include them, then we could further amplify the harm that was already going on, and then is maybe multiplied now.
Yes, B, you are speaking my language. I mean, I absolutely, you know, the emotional capital that people are losing is hard, and it's something that organizations are having to be thoughtful about in terms of really encouraging good self-care as people battle anxiety, or feelings of being overwhelmed and fear. And so I am right there with you. I even was in a conversation yesterday with a future co-host. She's actually scheduled for May 29th. And we were talking about compassion fatigue and how that's a thing right now that's starting to surface, because people are feeling this overwhelming responsibility to show that level of compassion, which is great, right? It's what we want, because we need people to be empathetic right now, but that it's creating some wear and tear on the emotional state of people, and how people need to, you know, really try to find ways to address that. And so lots of new situations that I think that we're all finding ourselves in. I think Monica's back with us. Did you want to pick up, Monica? And
the last thing I was saying was that from a Gen Z perspective, this generation is actually driving a lot of DEI change, because they're saying to corporations, I'm no longer going to spend my dollar with you if your board does not look like my friends, and if your C-suite does not look like my friends. So we know that Ursula Burns was the first African-American CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and we are really excited about that accomplishment. But we really need to make sure that we're continuing to be cognizant of that our D&I roles in corporate America are truly not just placeholder roles, but roles that are truly making a difference, and are truly making a change, and are truly holding organizations accountable.
Yes. So let's talk about the recovery efforts, because now, of course, people are starting to have conversations about opening up the economy, and that brings a whole new set of questions and anxiety. You know, just reflect on what your thoughts are, Monica, and then I want to open it up and have others to share their thoughts as well. But I think it's time for us to start really being thoughtful about what does the recovery efforts look like, because we have to be very smart about it for certain.
So I don't think we're going to go back to where we were before. I think that there will be a new normal.
Did we lose you again, Monica? Okay, let's open it up to see.
Have you guys?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Okay, we're not going to see it. It's going to be a new normal, is what I heard you say last. Yes.
Yep. So it's going to be a new normal. And what I would say with this new normal is that you truly have to make sure that you're being innovative with how you approach work. So not everyone's going to need to go back to an office going forward. Not everyone's going to have live meetings when it comes to doing your business. So be very thoughtful about this new normal going forward. So I ended with just be very thoughtful about this new normal going forward, Nika.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The new normal going forward. So let's open up the line. I'm actually going through chat right now, but if someone would like to share your thoughts on how you envision the recovery effort. So what are some of the considerations that we need to have top of mind as citizens as we now start encountering, businesses that are going to be reopening?
Hello, Nashia Whittenburg here.
Hi,
I think that, hi, how are you?
Doing well. Good to hear your voice.
I think we need to be mindful, coming from a higher education perspective, and understanding that all of our 4 North Carolina State University classes have moved online for the summer. Mm-hmm. There's a realistic possibility that we, large institutions, ours has over 37,000 students, might not be open for the fall semester. And so what does education then look like? And then also what does diversity efforts in, my line of work on a college campus look like? And then what does that mean also for families of college age students? What does that mean for potential financial aid? What does that mean for scholarships and athletics? And how do we then go about redefining who is essential and who isn't? And that is definitely something that we've been discussing, and parents of college age students, I don't think are being told with transparency what's going to happen next and what it's going to look like. So that's just one of the things that I'm thinking our future is going to look like, that we will open in some parts, but not in others. And in those other parts is where we will need additional support from our employers.
Right.
Relates to education.
No, thank you for sharing. And I almost feel like there needs to be special considerations and plans based upon the industry. Like you just talked about higher learning institutions, but the beauty industry is big. So I think about all the barbers, all of the hairstylists. I think about the estheticians and those who are in positions where they're having to have direct contact with people. Just to say that we're going to reopen the economy is a scary thing when you consider that there are nuances about different industries that makes it hard to just day one reopen up. And so anyway, I wanted to amplify that thought as well. I'm hearing, and I'm actually reading some of the comments in the chat room, and it seems like there's huge concerns over the social determinants of health and the impact that they're having. Again, we're seeing that obviously across the board, but particularly around people of color. And so I don't know if someone from the health industry, I know that Antonette has, put some comments in the chat room, so I don't want to put anyone on the spot necessarily, but if someone's in the health industry and would like to share your thoughts on that statement, please feel free to unmute yourself and do so now.
Hello, Dr. White. I will try my best to not have my young kids screaming in the background as well.
Fine.
And you probably just see an avatar picture of me as well, because I'm navigating a lot of things at the same time. But
sure.
I appreciate just speaking a little bit on behalf of the healthcare industry. I am a pediatric nurse practitioner. I'm also a nurse educator. And so there have been a lot of difficulties across the spectrum. One with just access to care. As someone in the primary care setting and not necessarily in the front lines on acute care, once all of these things have calmed down, so to speak, on the acute front, there will be a lot of reintegration into the community, into primary care. What does that look like in the long run? How do people access care? There have been huge shifts to virtual care, but if someone doesn't have the appropriate tools that they need and the equipment that they need within their home to be able to access that virtual care, if, for example, they can't go into their primary care setting, then that's going to be very challenging if there's concern for exposure, if there's concern for safety, is there concern for everything else that comes with it, especially within rural areas, and that goes for the education front as well as the healthcare front. You know, there's been, thankfully, a huge change in terms of the legislation around telehealth and telemedicine. But again, when you think about social determinants of health, how do you successfully integrate that when someone may be in a very remote area, when they have spotty internet? Maybe their only reliable internet was going to the library, but the library is closed right now. And so there's a lot of work that I do on the community front, just thinking about how can we think innovatively when it comes to having this re-entry back into society, when we're thinking about how do we educate, how do we provide access to primary care? So does that look like mobile vans or units? Does that look like, you know, there's certain schools in my area that have Wi-Fi buses that are going around, and they're stopping in certain central points so that students who don't have internet at home can at least access internet in some form or fashion. And the same might have to be for primary care, for virtual care. If someone does want to have a telehealth or telemedicine access, what does that look like? And also, what does that look like in terms of the safety for other healthcare providers if they have to start going into the homes? Will they have the protective equipment that they need if there is someone who might be grappling with symptoms? So there's a whole host of things that are being uncovered and a lot of layers that are being exposed, especially within the healthcare industry. And again, I can't speak for everything. This is just kind of my own observation, but I think across the board, especially as a nurse, you know, we're seeing a variety of these kinds of challenges that are popping up, and just trying to navigate, you know, how can nurses be on the forefront of innovation in this way? How can we as a society be on the forefront of saying, yes, if we move towards these things that really do help improve access. So, you know, virtual care is very important. It's very necessary. Telehealth and telemedicine is very necessary, especially if you are a senior that's in your home that can't get out, or you haven't had access before. But how do you put, as you mentioned, the measures in place, and how do you think through them and use this time where there may be open spots to think about it? How do you take the exposure of some of those deficits in the healthcare system and say we need to put the protective layers in place so that, you know, when primary care practices are opened up, or maybe they don't open up in the same way, how do you make sure everyone has more access versus less access, and that you start, you know, losing people through the cracks because they can't attend their appointment because their phone got cut off or their internet doesn't exist?
Right, and to go along with what you've already shared, I'm seeing that there's some additional comments in the chat room that relate to the healthcare profession. And Christine Scott, who is a medical interpreter, she said that there's a limited, you know, language proficiency risk is something that's also top of mind for a lot of people, and not having the adequate representation when they need it most. And then Catherine Hall was sharing just the consideration that has to be given to those with disabilities, children or adults. You know, they need special you know, equipment for their therapy. You know, are they being cared for right now in the most effective way? And so those are definitely some real concerns that we have. Lots of good stuff into the chat room right now. What about some other industries that are being impacted? Would someone like to unmute themselves and to just share your insight and perspective on a different industry?
Hi, Dr. White.
Yes.
This is Tanya Gibson from Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Hi, Tanya.
My industry is nonprofit, specifically mentoring children. And so just a little bit of background for context for us. We never stopped working. And so for us, even though many of us in our national office can work from home, the work really doesn't stop, because 80% of the communities that we serve are communities of color, 70% being in rural communities. And so everything we've been talking about today is top of mind and a priority for us. And so, you know, for us, when we think of the transition back to work, we still have to think about all of the topics that people have already talked about: access, right? Access to healthcare, access to information. And for many of our children, you know, our concern is the loss of contact. Our kids were already having, you know, vulnerabilities in their communities, and that's why they've been mentored with a caring adult. And so that loss and that isolation can be compounded with some of the other issues that are going on in these communities, specifically youth protection concerns, where they may be going back into a home situation or an environment that may have been unsafe, or just made them already feel vulnerable. And so we have seen concerns around abuse, both physical and mental. And so that's something also to consider is, you know, the children in our communities of color, you know, they already have vulnerabilities and may not have a voice. And so for us, it's really important to make sure that we're considering that, and also looking at how our DEI efforts can amplify communities of color, specifically mentors. We're always looking for, as some people mentioned, belonging and feeling welcomed and included. And many of our children don't identify any of those dimensions of DEI in their everyday lives. And so when we look at transitioning back to what the new normal will look like once COVID-19 is over, all of these concerns for us are still a priority, because none of these identified items that I listed are going to change for our kids. And so we're always looking to see how can adults be a part of the solution, and make sure that we're understanding that those same issues are happening for our staff. As you mentioned, social isolation is real. And even though we're working remotely, that loss of contact and interaction with people can be detrimental to some of the items that Antoinette mentioned. The mental stamina that you need to have to continue to work in this crisis is not normal. And so we also have to think about the adults in the room, all of us on this call, and to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves.
Absolutely. Self-care, again, as we battle the anxiety, the feelings of overwhelm and fear and uncertainty. And I love that you said that we each need to try to be a part of the solution. So, conversations around how can we mobilize in solidarity with those who are being disproportionately affected right now. I love the work of the organization, Tanya, and we do have some young people that are on the call today. I at least know of a few. I mentor a group of young girls at Legacy Early College, and we just recently started convening again through virtual format, because I just felt really compelled to want to make sure that there was a level of connectivity to make sure that they were feeling whole, and just to give them a space to talk about what they were dealing with. I hear a lot of parents talk about the younger youth, and they have vastly set of different needs from sometimes our older, high school teens and tweens. But we can't forget about them as well. And so I want to applaud all of those students that are on the line today. We do certainly need to make sure that we're connecting with them as much as possible. So our time is almost out. We have like 8 minutes left. And so I want to make sure that we do allow—
Dr. White,
yes,
just quickly add in
yes,
just a quick
please.
point. Because our audience we have so many entrepreneurs and corporate professionals on the line, I really want each of you to also start thinking about, what is your new path forward? We know that we're in historical layoffs right now, and people filing for unemployment, and also with entrepreneurs that the PPP and the idle money, those funds have already run out. So really making sure that you're positioning yourself for your new normal and your economic recovery, but doing so in a way that truly is strategic, and also not missing your North Star, because right now many of us, can go into a sense of panic. But what I really just want to stress to each of you is, during this time is not the time to just walk away from your North Star, your strategy, but instead to make sure that you are truly staying that path, but just getting to it in a different way. And if you guys have not had a chance to read a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, I highly recommend it. It's a great book for DEI professionals, for young people, to really make sure that you're keeping your mindset where it needs to be during these challenging times.
Mindset. I am putting the title, I didn't catch the author, but I did just put the title into the chat room. So maybe if you could find that for us. But I love that. And I'm glad that you pivoted, because that's exactly where I wanted to go next. I know that a lot of our marketing communications for today, it described that a good bit of our conversations were going to be relevant to how do businesses pivot during this time. And you're right. When I saw the news come out yesterday mentioning that the $349 billion had depleted, I immediately thought there's still hundreds of thousands of people that are in need that have not yet even taken the first step. And not because they didn't want to or they were being lazy. It was because many of those individuals, they don't have those strong banking relationships. And a lot of those people were people that look like you and I, Monica, right? And so we know that a lot of the financial institutions have been prioritizing who they're going to serve with processing their loans based upon who they have direct relationships with. And so again, it just amplifies another inequity that exists in our society, where those who have not and are disadvantaged continue to be left behind. And so I am very hopeful that the government will open up an additional $349+ billion to cover all of those who did not get their name in the hat, because that's what's needed. So I do want to spend these next few moments for you just to share with us a little bit more about how have you pivoted, and what are some ways that for the entrepreneurs on the line can think about pivoting their business to try to have some level of sustainability for the long run as we make it to the other side. And I use those words very deliberately because we will all make it to the other side of this crisis. Okay, what do you have to share, Monica?
Yeah, so really remember, guys, this is a marathon. Success is not accomplished overnight. All of us are on this marathon together. And I've pivoted by bringing all of my curriculum virtually. So I was supposed to be in 5 cities over the last 2 weeks, and all of those sessions have now been done virtually. But what I would say to each of you, and listen to me, and I hope that this will not cut out on me again, you are going to make it. It's during the times we're in the valleys that really we grow the most. Do not be concerned about just trying to get back to the peak, but instead experience this tremendous growth right now. Do things in your business, especially my entrepreneurs. You're very agile. You have the ability to be very quick to make pivots. So go ahead and do those pivots. To my corporate professionals, those of you who've been laid off, this is now the time to pivot to your purpose, to really start working on where do you intentionally want to go next. For those of you who still have jobs, really make sure that you're thinking of really creative ways to do your job going forward, because things will not go back to where they were. Remember, a marathon is 26, 13. We got to keep going, and know that when you get to mile 20, it's going to get tough, but you have to keep going and you cannot give up. So this is not the time, especially as a diversity and inclusion professional, for you to stop the good fight. We need you to be more deliberate. We need you to make sure that you continue to go. And at the end of the day, quite frankly, remember, this too shall pass, and we're all going to be better for it.
Yes, we will get to the other side. Where you are resonating with so many people that are on the line. I'm seeing so many folks to repeat your pivot to your purpose. Don't just pivot strategically to your purpose. So we love the conversation around reflecting on what is your North Star. Go back and reflect on what is the why. Why did you start in the first place? And hold on to that and allow it to continue to push you towards thinking more creatively, more innovatively as we get to the other side. Because, you know, all of us right now are in this mode of sustainability, but we don't want to just survive. We want to thrive through this. And so I love the perspective that you are challenging us all to. And so it's been beautiful. It is 11:58, and so I'm going to wrap up by just a couple closing remarks. And I will share with everyone that this has been recorded, and so if there are some points maybe that you did not fully catch, we will send it out this afternoon, as well as a transcript of the chat room discussions. There were lots of great resources that were placed in there, so I thank you all for contributing to the conversation. I want to share with you, we'll be back here next week at 11 a.m. with the new and different co-hosts. Nicole Andrews will be here, and she'll be talking about career disruption strategies for delivering results. Oftentimes, as ambitious women in the workplace with big dreams, or just people in general, we feel undervalued and overlooked. And so she has a heart for helping women to really find their passion and purpose, similar to Monica, all that you've shared today. So she's going to be talking about how to disrupt traditional thinking and break through limiting beliefs to reimagine what's possible for you. So I'm loving how we have been able to thread these conversations together with some similar thoughts. And so join us next week. I want to thank our co-host, Monica McCoy. You have been awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate your willingness to join with us and loved all of your nuggets. Make sure that you do follow her. She's on just about every social media platform. I know because I follow her. Her Pitch University is phenomenal. And so you're going to leave your contact information in the chat room for us, right, Monica? So that we can reach out to you.
I will start. Yes.
Okay, I heard yes, and so
just really quickly.
No, please.
Yes, you can follow me at Monica Motivates across all of my social media. So Twitter, Facebook at Monica Motivates, pitchuniversity.com, and monicamotivates.com.
Fantastic. I also want to put a couple other additional resources into your hearing. If you want to continue to learn how to lead inclusively, especially during this time when it's so critically important, I do want to offer up some other free resources to you. So I have what is referred to as Inclusion Uncomplicated. These are small video snippets that I produce and put out there every week, twice a week, in fact. So you can go to my website or to my YouTube channel and subscribe. But they're just ways to make DEI practical. How can we simplify DEI? They don't have to be these complex constructs that we don't know what they are in theory and nor how to practice them. And so I want to make sure that I am helping us all to lean into our responsibility. And I use that word responsibility deliberately in order to help create the level of inclusion and belongingness that we want and that we want others to receive. Many of you have heard me say this before, but it's worth repeating. It is hard for anyone to show up at their best if they're always questioning whether or not they belong. And the people that didn't feel a sense of belonging prior to COVID-19, they are struggling even more right now. And so let's do our part to leverage our influence, our sources of privilege and power to help people feel a sense of belonging so they can feel valued, seen, and accepted. And so I encourage you to take advantage of that. I've enjoyed each of you, as I have been doing in the past. We will stay on for maybe another 10 minutes or so, just for any last minute burning questions or commentary that you have that you were not able to address with our co-host. And so this officially adjourns our session today. But again, we're going to hang around for 10 more minutes. I want to thank all of those on Facebook that joined live, and we hope that you will register for next week's Intentional Conversations at 11 a.m. Thank you all so very much. Let's give some snaps for our co-host, Monica. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Nika.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Awesome, fantastic. Okay, so I've been doing this the past couple of weeks because I find that an hour is just not enough. And so instead of just abruptly kind of ending, I've at least been allowing a little bit of a buffer of 10 minutes for those who did not get their questions answered to be able to do so. And so I want to just kind of go to the chat room, and actually what I'll do is while I'm looking in the chat room, I will invite anyone who wishes to address a question or a comment that was not shared during our hour to unmute themselves and do so now.
Nika, this is Rashonda Olden.
Hi,
Hello, everyone. I had a question for yourself, Monica, as well as the teens and tweens. I also work with middle and high school students across the state of South Carolina, and I've been really concerned about them. We're focusing on our food and our shelter, but they get mixed in between. So I just wanted to know, how do you all think that we can help support them during this time of the pandemic? Because although they're not going to work, when something happens to mom, it happens to them. When something happens to school, it also happens to them. So how can I best support them during this time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, you know, I can share my perspective on what I feel like has been important. And specifically, I guess, as it relates to my reference earlier to the group of young ladies that I am mentoring right now. They need connection. You know, they, just like us as adults, we need connection too. But, you know, they're in that impressionable phase right now where they are encouraged every single day to have that social connection. So without it, they're lost, right? And so I think that we need to find ways to create opportunities for them to be able to connect. And so for me, what I'm doing with the young girls, they'll learn this afternoon when we connect at 4 o'clock, is we're going to start a book club. And every week, it's a leadership book. And so every week as we're meeting, we're going to talk about, what did you read? What are your reflections about it? And it just gives us a chance for connectivity, and to hear from them, to keep them engaged. And it also allows them to put it on their calendar, because I think that having a schedule and somewhat of a structure is important right now for a lot of the tweens and teens, because if not, they will sleep all day. They will procrastinate on their work. I mean, I'm seeing it with my teenager right now, right? And so I've said, son, set a schedule. And so he and I worked on a schedule. And so I think that we need to help them to navigate this with different best practices and tools, and just checking in. The other day, we sat down at our kitchen table and we had a family meeting. You know, while my husband and I have been so concerned about, you know, pivoting in our businesses, we realized we have kids that are going through their own emotions. And so we just allowed them space to say, how are you doing? How is this impacting you? And just having them talk about it can be very therapeutic as well. So those are some of the things that I've seen. or that I'm trying, but I certainly want to hear from others because I need answers as well. So others who would like to chime in on this. And Monica, yourself, I know, how old are your kids, Monica?
Yes, so I have a 5th and a 7th grader,
Okay.
so we're 10 and 13.
Yeah.
But I echo all of your points, Dr. White. And the other thing that I would say is truly take time to write letters to your kids. So especially the educators, I know it's a lot of work to do that, but one of the most beautiful things that's happened during this time is one of my daughter's teachers sends letters continuously, and my daughter looks forward to getting those letters in the mail. It just makes her day. But I would also encourage our young people to journal. Mental health is really, really serious. Unfortunately, I've seen several instances of kids committing suicide during this pandemic. And I truly think that we have to make sure that we're intentionally connecting with our young people, not just virtually, but really taking time to write these notes to them and mail them. And in addition to that, really encouraging them to journal. And I know that some school districts are doing mental health days. So my school district, every Friday is a mental health day where the counselors are joining the students to really talk on different topics. So I really think that, this is a time, especially for those of us who can be big brothers and big sisters to these young people. Let us also take some of the burden off of the teachers and write some of these notes and encourage some honest dialogue, because kids are resilient, but kids also are very vulnerable and need to make sure that their voice is being heard.
I love that. And if you are, I'm seeing Christine Scott is sharing that she's going to be more aggressive about checking in on her nieces and nephews. And so if you don't have kids of your own, then, maybe identify who's a kid that maybe attends, the same worship service that you normally would go to prior to COVID-19 or in your church that you could reach out to. My sister often, will text and check on my kids. And so this is a community effort right now. We need everyone checking in. I saw someone mentioned that schools are also having parades in the neighborhoods that students live in, so they can send happy mail, and they have video conferencing, and I love that. I've seen some of it on social media, and the kids love it. It's almost like it breaks up the monotony of their day, and it gives them just a small activity to look forward to. I think right now the best thing that we can sell for everyone, I know we're talking about teens and tweens right now, but just for everyone, is we need to sell hope. There is enough bad information out there that causes people to feel so overwhelmed. And so right now, let's start selling hope. Let's start selling the fact that we're going to make it through this crisis, and that sense of just being grateful for where we are. Because I think sometimes even, the journaling is a great idea, because we can reflect on, what are the things I'm grateful for today? And that can sometimes shift our mindset. So yes, find the joy. I love it. Okay. So any other thoughts and remarks? Now is your chance. We have about maybe 2 more minutes. Hannah says it helps the parents too, talking about their projects and assignments that are due, or setting time to navigate various school assignments. Yes, I'm constantly saying, do you have any assignments due this week?
One thing that you reminded me of is there's a kind of breakdown of trust in a lot of underrepresented communities, even before COVID-19, so that people aren't necessarily heeding, the expert guidance out of historical precedent for harm associated with doing so. And then in connection with that, just the broader context of tech and security, in that a lot of people are taking shortcuts or using services in different ways now, using Cash App to move money around. And one of the challenges of using social media and different services like WhatsApp and so forth is that their security vulnerabilities can deeply impact people who are depending on it for life, or depending on it for learning to stay safe. And so that focus on security is core to what we're doing over at POC Inc. Hope we can talk soon.
No, I love that. You're so right. And I'm finding that a lot of our young people, particularly the teens and tweens, they are gravitating towards those social media platforms for that level of social interaction. And that can lead to a whole, slew of, potential challenges. So not only the psychological safety do we need to be concerned about, but also the physical safety, of people, beginning to maybe engage in activity and conversations that are not healthy. And so, I love you bringing that to the surface. Yeah. So this has been great. I always hate to end these calls because literally I can find that we can go in so many different directions, which is why we do this weekly now. And so I have appreciated all of the contributions. I hope that you all will join us again next week. And I just want to thank you. So Monica, I'll give you the last final parting remarks to our audience.
Yeah, my last remarks to each of you is just to remember to be patient with yourself, to be kind to yourself. 9 out of 10 people that you're speaking to are dealing with a major life challenge outside of just COVID-19. So just know that this is only amplifying it. But truly know at the end of the day, this is going to pass. Take advantage of this time. Spend time with your friends and with your immediate family, I should say, and with your friends virtually. But really take time to reconnect with people that you have not connected with. Have those dinners. There's so many leaders who want to speak to you right now, who are sitting at home, who now have availability on their calendar. Take advantage of this time to network virtually. But at the end of the day, we as D&I professionals, we have to keep the work moving forward and really be intentional about it, but literally get out there and make sure you're posting on LinkedIn, that you're continuing to move the cause forward. So with that, thank you, Dr. White. Thank you to your entire audience. It's been an absolute pleasure. For those of you who want to stay in touch, you can reach me at monicamotivates.com, at Monica Motivates on Twitter, at Monica Motivates on Facebook, and Monica D. McCoy on Instagram. Thank you guys so much.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much. Have a great weekend. Enjoy. Find some type of, fun thing to do with your loved ones this weekend that's safe. I appreciate all of you for joining. Until next week, have a great weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.